that's this thing. No? Nope. Okay. Hey guys, my name is Summer Myers. I am a homeschool mom of 5 kids, and we do things homeschool on this channel. So if you need help, if you need community, if you need advice, I am here for you. Hit that subscribe button and you and I can be friends. It'll be so much fun. Today, my friends, we are talking about the math program that I use for all of my kids. I've been using it for 2 years now, and it is RightStart Math. And I balked initially at the price tag because it is rather a big commitment to make when you're not entirely certain if this is going to work for your family. So the video today, I'm hoping will calm any fears or worries or nerves that you have about this program, that it is absolutely worth it. That being said, I got almost the entirety of my curriculum online from eBay. I got it used, and I have seen the used at homeschool stores, and I've seen it on curriculum. So you can get it cheap. The main bottom line is that this is worth it. Last week I did a video about the math manipulatives that go with RightStart. Today I am going through the actual workbooks so you can see and understand. I'm also going to be doing some lesson plans on so you can see how they flow and if you can implement that fairly easy into your homeschool. So that's what today's video is doing. That's what we're doing today. This is Level A. So Level A is a book that I did with one of my kids thus far. I have an upcoming preschooler that's going to be starting this, probably not this year, but next year. I would say that this is very gentle, this first Level A. So if you've already had a kindergartner that's gone through public school and you're looking for, the next step, this wouldn't be it. If your preschooler is starting to show interest in sitting down with you and doing little math, these lessons are very, very gentle and easy. And so you could start them with that. I'd say 4 and 5. My kindergartner, it took her about 2 years to get through. And I think that was partly because I'm not a homeschool kindergartner who is like, we're doing school every single day. My kindergartners, I like them to run around outside. I like them to play, do imaginative play. And we do book work, but it is very, very low key. And that's part of the reason why I like RightStart, is because it is low key. It gives them a chance to prepare sitting down next to you and working with you, getting used to the idea of sitting down and doing something. It's also really great for kids who are like, I want to do school. And then they're like, I don't want to do school anymore. Because if you miss a couple of days or if you miss a week, it's not a big deal. You can ease back into it. It's not like they're going to forget everything the next day. So with that being said, what does Level A exactly cover? They have a list of objectives here for Level A, and I'm just going to read them out. They talk about numeration. So this is understanding numbers, and I talked about this a lot with my math manipulatives, identifying them in groups. If you can associate a number like 1, like 2, like 3 with a group of objects first before the letters, like the actual number 1 or the number 2, you're able to grasp concepts of moving those numbers around. So Level A is all about seeing and identifying groups of numbers. You should be able to, by the end of the RightStart program, to recognize groups of numbers from 1 all the way up to 100 using the abacus, using all the math manipulatives. And I found that it gave my daughter such a solid foundation when it came to adding and subtraction that it wasn't a difficult concept at all for her to grasp. It's a bit like phonics. So, when I teach my kids with Teach Your Child to Read with 100 Easy Lessons or whatever that book is, and they have the little symbols or whatever for the th sound or the th sound. And I'm sorry if you don't understand that reference. So they've got all these phonic sounds before they talk about the actual letter names. And that eases them into actually reading a lot quicker. This does something very similar where you are associating numbers with actual objects of numbers. So when you are manipulating them and moving them around, it clicks in really quickly when you're doing functions of math like addition, like subtraction, and moving on to more difficult math like multiplication, division. You can see that a lot quicker. So I would say this is almost like phonics for math. They also work with you on skip counting, so like counting by 2s, counting by 5s, counting by 10s. It's introducing this idea of patterns in numbers. It's introducing this idea of eventually multiplying those numbers. It also talks about even versus odd. It does a whole thing about place value. They talk about money for a little while. It's mostly about naming the coins and identifying which ones. They have this thing called partitioning numbers. So what they do is they take a whole number, like 10, and they break it off into 2 parts. So you've got 2 and 8 equals 10. And this idea of separating the numbers and then adding them, rather than saying 1 plus 1 equals 2, you have a breakdown of all 3 numbers. And I'll tell you why that is so brilliant, because it shows that the relationship between the numbers can also work completely the same in subtraction. So that's how they introduce addition. And then when the new concept of subtraction comes in, it's like, this is the same thing we were doing before, but now we're just taking a different number away. There is some problem solving. So every once in a while, they'll have a couple lists of different problems that you do, like Jack and Jane go to the Apple store and they buy 2 apples or whatever. So they do introduce problems in that way. They do a lot of geometry and identifying shapes. Again, this is a preschool concept that's introduced in kindergarten. Very easy, very understandable and relatable. They have a couple of songs that they do. So we should look at the songs. Level A comes with this book. It's really cute. It's called Yellow is the Sun. And actually they talk about this in level B too. I don't think they do it with yet level C, but it's identifying the numbers in different groups. So they have a couple of songs like that. Yellow is the Sun. They have days of the week. They have months of the year. They have a song for like how many months are in how many days are in a month. So 30 days, half September. It talks about measurements for a brief bit where you can measure different objects. I would say the majority of this curriculum is identifying like groups of numbers and moving those groups of numbers around, and addition. So they do a little bit of subtraction, they do a little bit of everything else, but that's the main focus, which I think is on par with at least our local public school. I know they do 1 through 100 and some basic addition. So I feel like this is pretty standard and keeps them on par with their peers. I'm gonna do a quick lesson with my daughter. This is lesson 33. I don't know if that matters to you. And we're gonna do it together so you guys can kind of see how it works. I am here with Catherine and she has agreed to do level A with us. So this is lesson 33 with Katie Pat. Are you ready to do this? Ooh, first show them your nails. When did you do this?
Today, Dad let me.
Dad let you. Okay, well, show them. Should flip it this way. So beautiful. Got it all over your face. First, we're gonna sing our Days of the Week song. You ready?
Okay.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay. Can you show me on the abacus? Here's your abacus. Can you show me how to add 5 and 3? So that is the warm-up for today. And then I would ask her to do this worksheet, which is worksheet 8. This is showing the tally marks to the side as well as the numbers and just practicing writing out her numbers. But she's already done this, right? So we are not worrying about that. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the part-whole circle. This is the actual part of the lesson, right?
I like part-whole circles.
You like part-whole circles? They make math easier, don't they?
Yes, they do. Because sometimes you can basically kind of see them.
You can see how it works, right?
Yeah.
So here's the hole. Let's get our tiles out.
Wait, 5 tiles
On the whole part? One, two, three, four, 5. Excellent. All right, now can you show me another way to make 5? How would you break this up? So 2, 3 here. Okay, and then how many would you put there?
Well, I'll just have 2 here.
Okay.
Then I'll have 3 over here.
Good. So you can break up 5 with 2 and 3.
I don't remember this lesson.
It's been over a year. Is there another way you can break up 5? How else could you move these tiles around?
You could do the other way around.
You could do it the other way around. Yeah. Good. How else?
Also, do 4 here and
4 there.
1 up here.
Very good. You could have 4 here, 1 right there. Is there another way?
Let me see. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you could do the 4 and 1. What if you did this? 5 and 0, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Good. All right, so then we could say 0 and 5 equal 5. We could do 1 and what?
1 and 4.
And what?
Let's see. What was the other one?
2
Oh,
and...
yes. And 3.
Good.
And that's 5.
Very good. All right, let's do something a little different. All right, let's do something a little different. Let's do 4 up here. How can you partition 4? Would you like a couple?
Mama.
Very good. 2 and 2 give you 4. Is there another way to do it? Else.
2 and 2
2 and 2 will give you 4.
is obvious.
Which is obvious. Okay, and then there ends with a mixed up cards game. This game is laid out and mixed up, and they talk about it in the card game book.
I don't remember that game.
You don't? Well, maybe we'll need to play it again. And then for additional review, they've got another game listed, mystery card game. So now we are done. I feel like if I was worried or concerned about how easily she partitioned these numbers, we would play the card games. You okay?
Yes, I'm okay. I just dropped a tile on. I don't know where.
If I was worried about her ability to do this lesson, then we could play those card games. Otherwise, she would be free to go. And that took us, what, like 10 minutes? And it was pretty solid. Okay, high five. Yeah. Thanks, girlfriend. Thank you. Thank you, Henry. Henry can say thank you. All right, so level B is the next group. I am doing this currently with my first grader. We have just recently started, so it's going to be carrying off into the following year. This builds on numeration, but by now she has a pretty solid foundation on it, so we're not talking so much about groups of numbers. She already knows them. So with numeration, again, with level B, they're counting by 2s, counting by 5s, counting by 10s. They've already done that pretty much in level A, but they're reinforcing that, and they can do that really well in this book. They can identify even and odd numbers all the way up to 100, 120, which means they can count by 2, 4, 6, and they can pick out a number and be like, that's odd, that's even. They know their place values. They know how to stack their numbers up and how to write them out. They do addition and subtraction a little bit bigger. They do like double numbers. So there's this idea that when you use the abacus, it can break numbers down so much easier. So if you're saying this is 8 and this is 8, well, all we have to do is add these 2 5s together, and then we've got 6. So we've got 1, 10, and 6. And so they add these different kinds of strategies starting in level B. They talk about it a little bit in level A. There are also a lot of trading and borrowing from numbers. So if you've got bigger numbers that you're adding, like 16, you can move the abacus numbers around to give you up to 10, trading the beads up and down. I will say that RightStart Math doesn't do a ton of word problems, and initially that worried me, but then I realized we're doing a lot of math manipulatives where we're manipulating numbers physically, and so that's what word problems generally are supposed to get you to do. They're supposed to get you to think of numbers abstractly and moving things around. They do some geometry. This is still shape identifying. It's also talking about parallel versus perpendicular. They know lines of symmetry and different ways of composing different shapes. Measurement, this is also measuring different shapes and showing how you've got, it's kind of an introduction to perimeter work, but not super heavy, just measuring different shapes. It's talking a little bit about fractions. We get the fraction cards out. And breaking down a whole into a half, into, a third. They're introducing the clock. Level A talks about the clock for like half a second. It's mostly introducing the idea because you're already understanding skip counting in level A, but it's still very, very basic. So level B, I think they do a lot more work with it where you are learning the skip counting much better and just reinforcing those concepts so they'll be able to read time better. So then they also start playing with money more. So not only can they name all the money and the associated amounts with it from level A, but now they are expected to add money together and getting various amounts together. And then they talk about the calculator for a couple of lessons, just introducing different buttons or whatever. For level B, we're going to be doing lesson 43, making rectangles with tangrams. So this is using some of our manipulatives, and I hope that kind of gives you an idea of how the manipulatives are incorporated into the different levels and lessons. Okay, lovely people, I am here with my middle child, Abby, and she is going to demonstrate level B for us. So this is a level that you have already done, and Henry's going to help too. Aren't you, Henry? So, are you okay? You down for this?
Okay.
All right, let's get to it. So first we're gonna do a warm-up questions. How many sides does a quadrilateral have?
4.
4. How many, can you show me parallel lines with your arms? Yes. Can you show me perpendicular lines with your arms? That's right, so it's just straight across.
Uh,
13, good. Yeah. So we've done our warm-up now, and we're going to talk about the tangram pieces here. How many tangram pieces are triangles? So let's just pick out just the yellow ones. How's that sound?
Okay.
So of these, how many pieces are triangle? So how many is that?
5.
Good. All right.
Oh yeah.
Can you make a right angle with your arm? There we go, very good. How many right angles do you see in the tangrams? How many right angles do you see? 1, good. 2. Is this just 1? How many are here? So there's 3, and then does this have any right angles? No.
9.
9. Very good. How many shapes do not have a right angle?
1.
1. All right, can you find the pieces that have parallel lines?
I found a tissue for you.
Do those have parallel lines?
Well,
Show me parallel lines with your arms. Right? So are any of these parallel?
None of these.
Well, the triangles don't. Does the square?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
square has.
those two together, man.
Those two together do, right? They become a big square. Okay, so now can you make a big square using the big triangles? Excellent, very good. Very pretty. Excellent, thank you. All right, can you make a rectangle using the 2 small triangles and the square?
A triangle?
And the square.
Wait, a triangle or a triangle?
2 small triangles and a square. Excellent. Can you make another rectangle with those 2 small triangles and something else? And what else? No. Think close again.
This.
Very, almost. Very good. There you go.
Or you could do.
Very good. You could do it also like that. But which case, if you did it this way, what is this called? When they go right on top of each other, they're called congruent. They usually have a lot of fun with this. At the end of the day, give her a break. She's tired. Are you tired? Good. So they're congruent. Excellent. Do you think the 3 rectangles you made are congruent? So that was the conclusion for that lesson. So this lesson took us like maybe 15 minutes to get through, start to finish. Granted, she's already done this, but it was a bit of a refresher because some of it we were like, haven't talked about this in a while. So this was good for us, but it doesn't take that long to sit and do these lessons. Anyway, thank you, Abby. Good job. Yeah. All right, so for level C, this one I have not been through the entire thing, if I'm being completely honest. I just started it with my middle child, but it's building up on the same thing. So by now, she knows all of her addition facts. She knows all of her subtraction facts. So they do review over those, but so the strategies that you learn in level B, but those no longer, it's not a heavy focus. Now it is starting to build on this idea of multiplication. So by the end of this course, I'm expecting her to be able to know all of her multiplication facts up to 5 times 5. So it's focusing more on arrays and forming arrays with the abacus. There's also a lot of more of understanding subtraction because addition is more of the main focus in level B. There's more problem solving. I think with the word problems, if I may, is about finding different ways to get to the number. So instead of just finding strategies to just do it and get it done with and getting the correct answer, RightStart Math really encourages you to find your own way to get there. And level C is kind of pushing that idea that you do not have to follow just the one way. In public school, they talk about how, sorry, we're gonna shift over with Common Core. It talks about putting tools in your tool belt or whatever, and finding different ways, and then needing to know all those different ways. But I think they're missing the point. The point is that math can be reached in a myriad of ways, and that you don't need to. There's no wrong way to do it. So these word problems give them a chance to figure out the answer in their own time and in their own way. So they've been given in the last 2 levels ways of reaching it, but they're not expected to have all those ways memorized. And it's mostly so their brains can latch on to the way that it makes the most sense. So for my oldest, when we first started this program, she was able to pick up on different math problems in a different way. She could put numbers together very differently than I could. I was like, how did you even do this? I mean, you got it right, but how did you do it? And she showed me, I see the numbers in this way. And it was interesting to me because when I reached those same problems with my middle child who was going up in the ranks, she sees the numbers very similar to the way I see them and builds up on them in that way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think RightStart, the point being that it caters to your child without you even realizing it. So that's fabulous. By now they should be able to tell time at least to the 5 point. So it's 1:05, it's 1:15, it's 1:3. This one, they focus on being able to tell it by the minute. It's 1:03, so you're not rounding it anymore. Money is no longer as big of a deal. You can make change, so using it as a subtraction tool. There's more emphasis in measurement in this particular one, where you are measuring in feet, inches, centimeters. There is a cursory introduction to perimeter and area. And I think there's a mention of metric. I'm sorry if I'm looking down, I'm reviewing over here. There is an introduction to metric. They can read a ruler by its centimeters or inches and halves or whatever. Geometry, there's more of a focus on 2D shapes and 3D shapes. Those have been introduced in level B, but now we're really getting into it more in this course. By the end of this, I expect her to understand that fractions are actually an elementary understanding of actual division. So we were introduced to fractions in level B so much as like, here's 1, this is half of 1. But now by the end of this course, I expect her to understand kind of rudimentary division by it. There's also more data, there's more graphing, gathering information and being able to read it, just very, very basic. You get more into that in the upper levels. More introduction with the calculator and how to use it in some of those interesting functions that it has on there. Oh, and also comparing numbers. So I think it touches a little bit on level B about, the alligators or whatever. It does a little bit more in this where you're comparing big numbers and little numbers and equal numbers, greater and less than. For level C, we're going to be working on lesson 36, multiples of 2 to 5. Okay, we're back doing this again. We are on level C now, and Caroline has agreed to do level C with us because
I am awesome.
Because she is awesome. Because Abby hasn't done this level yet, and I don't want to put the pressure on her to get it done. We're just gonna fudge it here. Okay, so we're gonna do the warm up real quick. How much is 1 plus 3?
1 plus 3 is 4.
How much is 1 multiplied by 3?
3.
Good. How much is 1 plus 4?
5.
Good. How much is 1 multiplied by 4?
4.
Good. How much is 10 plus 6?
It's 16.
How much is 10 multiplied by 6? So we've done the warm-up activity. The next I would give for this lesson, she would be completing worksheet 15. So I'll give you a little look at that.
That is easy.
That is easy, that's what Caroline said. And so she's filling this out. This is a lot of most of their worksheets don't actually look like that. The majority of their worksheets look more like, they're more interesting looking. Like this, there's other stuff to do. But for today's worksheet, it actually is rather boring. And so she would do that, which is just a review of her basic multiplication facts of 2, 5, 3, and 4.
Abby needs to do that worksheet.
Yes, so you don't need to do it. Do you mind? Can I set you down? Yeah, you play with that over here. Yeah. And then after she has done her multiples worksheet, she's going to be using her abacus to do it. So this is just a practice of doing arrays. So let's make an example, Caroline. Let's do multiples of 5. So can you show me a multiple of 5 times 5? Okay, that's the answer. Can you show me an array of 5 times 5? So this is showing the array. So you've got 5 here and 5 here of this multiple array. And this is just reiterating that with this particular worksheet. If she was struggling with this, there is a multiples memory game that she can play, that we could play together. So that worksheet would probably take like 15 minutes, maybe 20.
For Abby?
For Abby, not for you. I know you are a couple of levels ahead of this particular workbook. So yes, it wouldn't take you very long because you know it all. But for the person who would be taking this at this level, I expect it to take them 15 to 20 minutes. So, I mean, the amount of time that I spent on this, we did our warm-up activities where she's just answering questions, and then the conclusion, and then possibly a memory game if we're struggling with the actual lesson itself. But otherwise, we are done. Thanks, Caroline. High five.
Thank you.
Thank you. So level D we completed last year with my oldest. I was a little nervous initially when I started it, but she was doing it completely independently of myself for the majority of it. She would do her warm up by herself. We would have a short lesson, I'd say maybe like 10, 15 minutes, and then she was off doing her own thing. Very rarely would we need to sit and spend like an hour doing stuff. And I think that was partly because the games that we did were a lot of review, and she already had it pretty solid. I imagine if your child needs more review, you'll be spending more time with them, but those are mostly gameplay and less lesson. I hope that makes sense. As far as objectives for level D, by numeration, you should be able to, they're starting to introduce this idea of rounding. I think they talk about it in the other ones, but this is where they really put it in heavy, where you are rounding smaller, larger, 10, 100, and 1,000 up. But that's pretty much all they're doing for numeration. Addition facts they already know, subtraction facts they already know. Multiplication, they've been introduced to it very gently in level C, so by now, by the end of this course, she should know all of her multiplication facts up to 10. And they stop at 10 because 11 and 12 are just duplicates of smaller multiplication numbers. So if she knows her multiplication facts up to 10, then she's going to easily be able to do 11 and 12. So division is talked about in this. It's also very gentle. So it's mostly just solidifying this idea that multiplication is an inverse of division. So there isn't any talk yet of long division or big division numbers. It is very short division still. There's problem solving, word problems, so there's more than 2 ways to figure out what you're doing. With time and money, those two have been sort of combined by now. They already know everything with time and money. Maybe there's word problems or problems talking about change and that sort of thing. But times, they should already be able to read a clock by this level. They do some like time elapse, like if so-and-so gets to the movie theater at this time and an hour and a half past, what time is it now? And they do, that's just that spiral approach, just making sure that your memory is staying fresh with it. They're introducing squares. So like, they're introducing the square. No, they're introducing the idea of square units. So centimeters squared, inches squared, and this is just building up on this idea of area and perimeter, which they do a lot more of in this book. Measurements are now no longer just like measuring length. It's also talking about grams, kilograms, liters. Fractions are introducing the division idea and are more solid in understanding that A over B is A divided by B. And not only that they can compare and find the equivalent to different fractions. So a half is actually 2/4. So building up and preparing your child for eventual division. Data, there is some graphing, gathering data and layering it up, and talking about population, I think they did, and they did a couple of just some bigger numbers that you had to graph. There's more geometry, more talk about angles. Those are introduced in the earlier levels, but not quite as in depth. Like, for instance, in geometry in level A and B, they know like right angles or whatever, but now they're talking about like 30 degrees, 90 degrees, 60 degrees, can partition shapes into simple fractions and construct equilateral triangles. All right, so the one that we picked for level D for our lesson is lesson 80, making one with fractions. This one is a longer lesson, not that long. It's just because this was like the only lesson while I was flipping through that I noticed it didn't have a worksheet. So the majority of these have some kind of associated worksheet, and it's very little one-on-one time. This one is the lesson that I found that does not. So I thought you don't want to sit and watch her write a worksheet. So this is the one I can show you how we talk and do it together. Okay, so here's Caroline. Can you wave to the camera, Caroline? And she has agreed to do our next level. I had to tear her out of a tree. She was reading a book, so this is really big. Okay, can you get your fraction chart pieces out? What, Henry? So each lesson starts with a warm-up activity. So we're gonna start with doing that together real quick. All right, how many quarter hours make a whole hour, Caroline?
How many quarter hours?
Yeah.
4.
How many minutes are in a quarter hour?
15.
How long? After we're done with our warm-up activity, then we start working on through the actual lesson. So here are the fraction chart pieces. Can you grab me the whiteboard? Thanks. All right, so the bottom half of the number is called the denominator, okay? Denominator. There you go. Denominator means naming. It is related to nominate. The denominator names the size of the fraction. What is the denominator in the fraction of 1/2?
2.
Good. What is the denominator in 1/10?
10.
Good. All right, let's assemble the fraction chart in a special way, using the one piece in fractions with even denominators. So we're gonna take our fraction chart pieces and we're gonna set them up in just the even numbers. So 2 is an even number, 4, right? Excellent, Caroline. Do you see several ways to make 1/2?
Yes.
How many fourths are equal to 1/2?
2.
How many sixths are equal to 1/2?
3.
How many eighths are equal to 1/2?
4.
Good. How many tenths are equal to 1/2?
5.
Good. All right. So when we make the, whoop,
No, Henry.
let's take the halves out and do the 1/3 here. Oh, that's you were holding it. Okay. How many sixths are equal to 1/3?
2.
How many ninths
3.
are equal to 1/3? Good. All right, so now we're gonna make the number chart with 5s. So 1/5 and 10s. How many tenths do you need to equal 1/5?
You need 2.
Good. And how many tenths equal 3/5? So
2, 4, 6.
it would be 6, right? How many tenths are equivalent to 5/5?
To 5/5?
Yeah.
Oh, 10.
Good. Okay. So now that we have done all these fraction games, and or fraction manipulations. They have a game here, it's called the Game of One, that we can play in our card games. And normally I would skip these if it's like the end of the day, or if
Like it is right now.
which like it is right now, or if the baby is being whiny. I also skip it if I feel like my child is like well versed in what we're doing. However, if I do feel like they're struggling a little bit, I make sure that if we do skip it this today, that we do this game instead of the next lesson tomorrow, as kind of a reinforcer of what we learned about today. And that is the lesson for today. I think that took us, what, 10 minutes?
Yes, but I wouldn't have taken it if I've already done this lesson though.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for being willing to do it. And you know, it's funny because it was rather difficult with Henry Lewis, but it's not that hard. We can still manage to get it done. All right, so for level E, they're talking more about understanding prime numbers, factor numbers. They can read, write, and compare numbers, round them easily. Of course. Oh, my house smells so good. I've got bread. Okay, so for level E, you're talking more about prime numbers, factors, factor numbers. You can read, write, compare, round up a lot of numbers. Addition and subtraction, they cover briefly. Multiplication, you know all of your multiplication facts by now. There's some review of it. You know all of your division facts, including remainders. So in the last level, they talk about division and finding the remainder number. So this is just making sure that they reiterating that. So multiplying bigger digits together, short division to divide multi-digit numbers by single digits. So they are taking division problems to a point where you're computing your already known multiplication facts into division. Problem solving word problems, they have more than 2 steps to them. There's a couple of things you have to figure out before you get to the actual answer. Solving story division problems and understanding remainders. So they do more square units, they do more area and metric units, converting measurements to different systems. It covers fractions and different multiples of fractions to a whole number. This is an introduction to decimals. At this point, we haven't done any decimals or percentages. No, that's not true. You do a little bit of percentages in level D, level D. You do a little bit of percentages in level D. Level E is converting those percentages into decimal points, division into decimal points, and how you use those within a function. By this point, they are understanding simple equations and subbing out different numbers for letters. This is kind of this algebraic introduction. Data, so with graphing, they now are doing like line graphs and points and plotting instead of regular bar graphs. They already know lines of symmetry, but now they can identify them, and drawing reflections, learning angles a little bit stronger, going over and mastering that, being able to classify shapes with attributes. So that's saying like a square is 4 sides, 4 right angles. Well, that also includes like a rectangle. So just being able to classify those different shapes, constructing equilateral triangles and other shapes. I've decided not to do a lesson for level E, and the reason being a lot of it is just worksheets. Part of it is also because I haven't had a child that go all the way through it, so I don't know what would be a good example of how that lesson should look. But if you do have any questions or concerns or anything, feel free to comment below and I will be happy to try and answer it. A couple of things to keep in mind with the RightStart program. Number one, this is very teacher heavy. You must sit next to your child while you are doing math, especially in the very beginning levels. and working with them. And I know that can be very intimidating, especially if you have lots of kids in your house like I do. But honestly, math should not be solitary. I think we come in through this mindset culturally that math should be taught, by yourself. You're given a worksheet, and if you don't know the answers, then you're dumb. Math should be something that you do as a group. There should be discussion. There should be throwing out ideas, and you can't do that by yourself. And so a lot of the games that they have here, you can do it as a group with siblings. A lot of the math work is together, so your child can bounce ideas off of you as you're going through the lesson. I will say that even though it is super teacher-led in the beginning, by levels, towards the end of level C and by level D, it's not that heavy. You're literally working with them for a few minutes, especially kind of in the beginning of the workbook, and then by the end, they're doing a lot of independent work. So I hope that helps. But I do think that we should choose to teach our kids rather than farming it out to a computer or a workbook. I think we should choose to show our kids that math is something that can be learned together and can be fun. And things aren't fun if you're by yourself. My own personal opinion. Another thing with RightStart Math is that it is a spiral approach, which means they come back and review prior concepts that you've already gone over. So in the beginning of each lesson, they have that little warm up, and it's usually reviewing prior concepts. Sometimes it's just to get your brain started, get your brain going. And I totally am on board with spiral. Part of the reason why I think the spiral approach in this instance is really good is because these books are so gentle and they do give you so much time to understand a concept that it doesn't feel like you need to master it right away when there's referencing and you're building up on it and building up on it over and over again. So this, I think they do it really smart. I've seen spiral approaches where they introduce a concept and then they drop you flat and they start something new. This does not do that. It builds up on that. So you don't necessarily have to master it right away, but there's continual practice that you don't feel left behind, and it refers back to it as it comes back around. For each of the book bundles for RightStart Math, it comes with a book and then a workbook, so you can do all your worksheets or whatever. And then there's an optional appendix where it has the different associated with the games or things that you print out and cut out or whatever. And for a long time, and I had gotten mine secondhand, so my appendix, half of it was used up, and I was like, well, how am I supposed to do this lesson because I'm missing half the stuff? You don't need those appendix worksheets. They have them all here in the back. So unless you want them in the pretty colors in the cardstock, don't worry about it. It's all here in the back, and you can photocopy it on your printer or whatever, and you have it. So don't worry about that. Numbers are such a funny thing because in the English language, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10, and then we do the teens, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. But then once we reach 20, we repeat all the first 10 numbers again, 21, 22, 23. Teens aren't in there. So for whatever reason, the English language has teens squashed between the basic ones and the tens and ones. And that can be super confusing for a child, just memorizing it or whatever. And some children it doesn't, but I know 1 or 2 of my kids had trouble with it. And so and it talks about this in the beginning of the book about how they went to Asia and how Asian students view numbers very differently from American ones, for English ones, I'm sorry. And that's okay. But the idea to fix that, they refer to numbers as 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3. So instead of calling it 13, they would say 1, 10, 3. And that helps with the abacus. So you have 2, 10, 4. It makes more sense to a child. They're seeing 2 groups of 10. So that's what the numeration comes into play. And it's a much bigger part of level B, and they introduce it in level A, and by level B they've really latched onto this idea of adding numbers in this way. I will say all of my kids know how to count normally. They don't just perpetually use 2, 10, 4, 2, 10, 5 or whatever, or 3, 10, 6, but it does help them with place value. So that's the biggest reason why RightStart, I think, does that. So I wouldn't be concerned about them transitioning into regular numbers. They do introduce them. And at one point, my kids just dropped it all completely. They didn't need it anymore. So it's a stepping stone into understanding where the teen numbers go. Okay, lovely people, that is it for me today. I hope that was helpful so you could see the progression of which level is leading up to. I feel like this program is just super stellar, and I feel like my kids have a real grasp of math and they don't hate it. They really enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it. There isn't a whole lot of dragging our feet doing it. If it was helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe. I am a new channel and I am trying to make it out in the big cruel world. Just do it. And just take care. Take it easy. I hope everything is going well for you in life. Bye. What was I saying? Whew. Hold on. Excuse me. Hold on. The pollen. The pollen. Gosh darn it. Okay. Play. That's my bread. My bread is ready. Oh, I'm glad. Come bring it down. Glad you found it. Where was it?
It was upstairs in the hallway.
Oh, good. All right. Okay. That works. Water break. Oh my gosh. Let's see, is there anything I want to talk about? And maybe that was intuitive, but I'm not that intuitive. Look at my bread, guys. Doesn't that look awesome? So good. Today was a good day.